Hello everyone, welcome to Vinyl Addict, and today we got front to back, track by track. We're going for the Rolling Stones versus the Beatles, Revolver and Aftermath. Now these are albums that are both released in 1966, and this is my favorite Beatle album, Revolver. I think it was the peak of their greatness. And Aftermath is, I think it was like the first album of their greatness, and then their greater albums came later. I thought, with Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, and so forth and so on. So let's start off now with track one, round one, with Mother's Little Helper versus Taxman. So Mother's Little Helper is the Rolling Stones song, and now this is not the opening track. I mean, this is the English version of this album, because the American one had Painted Black. So with Mother's Little Helper, it's a great song. It has this little sitar playing by Brian Jones, and this is when they start doing topics, issues, political things, social, and same with the Beatles. But Mother's Little Helper I guess there was an epidemic now of mothers taking Valium, and it's going to middle class addiction and whatnot. And while the Beatles were talking about their tax issues, they were paying up to 90% of their earnings in taxes. And so George Harrison wrote this one, and it has a great guitar lead by Paul McCartney. So because of that solo, I'm taking the Beatles' Taxman as the first one. Now, second song, track two, Stupid Girl by the Rolling Stones versus Eleanor Rigby. Eleanor Rigby is pretty much Paul McCartney's song about loneliness, and it's just pretty much orchestral. I mean, it's just two string quartets, and they're just playing this kind of music that's there's the other guys are not in it, and it's just strings. And Stupid Girl is I'm gonna take Stupid Girl because it is a band effort, and it's the Rolling Stones being very bratty, Mick Jagger just talking about these girls who just like shop a lot. They're just they gossip, and he's just pretty much annoyed, so Stupid Girl. Round three, we got Lady Jane by the Rolling Stones versus I'm Only Sleeping by the Beatles. Lady Jane is sort of a Baroque pop thing that everyone with English bands kind of do, and they kind of started it here with that song. The Beatles do their own kind of Baroque thing, like Queen does it, and then there's I'm Only Sleeping from the Beatles, which is I'm gonna go with that song. It's it's John Lennon's song, and he pretty much really loved sleeping a lot. He when he was writing this song. And Paul McCartney would always have to wake him up so they could go to the studio and record or do whatever. But then he just he had this joy of sleeping. I could relate. So track four, round four, we have Under My Thumb, Rolling Stones versus Love You Too, which is the Beatles, which is Middle Eastern thing, an Indian thing that George was getting into, and he has all those kind of Indian instruments. Under My Thumb is, that's one of their famous songs, which was never a single, believe it or not, but it was, it's a song that they played a lot, and, it was also included in their Hot Rocks album, which is, they're all their famous singles, but it was never a single, but it was just a crowd favorite. And it has Brian Jones on the marimba, and so that song I'm going to take with the Rolling Stones. So that's round four. Round 5, we got Don't You Bother Me by the Rolling Stones, and Here, There, and Everywhere by the Beatles. The Don't You Bother Me is, like just a quick little blues number thingy rocker that they're doing, and it seems like in this album, the Rolling Stones, this is the first one where they wrote, Jagger and Richards wrote all the songs. Because they just emulated a lot of blues greats and everybody, and so their earlier stuff, the material that they were copying, were from some wise men, and so they always seemed, older than who they were by what they were singing about, and it kind of, creeped on to their own material. So it sounds like some of their older stuff that they used to copy. Now, Here, There, and Everywhere is a song that Paul wrote, which he was invited to a listening party of the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, and he heard God Only Knows, and so this is sort of his thing on the whole Brian Wilson thing. He was trying to emulate. So the song is about living in the moment, and I like that one, so I'm going with the Beatles on that one with Here, There, and Everywhere. Now the next one is Going Home by the Stones versus Yellow Submarine. Now Going Home is a 11-minute song, which was pretty much unheard back then. I mean, the Beatles started doing songs of like 7 minutes later on. But this is the Rolling Stones doing it, and it's like 11 minutes and 13 seconds. So it's a blues jam that they said started off as a 2-minute song. They wanted to do 2 minutes and 56 seconds, but they just kept going on, and there's harmonica solos, and there's just, random things going on, and it would say jam. And they just kept recording it, they kept it, rolling, and there we go. So it's a very spontaneous track. Whereas Yellow Submarine is, I always thought of this song as, it has a lot of, bells and whistles and stuff. It's kind of, cool in that sense. It has Ringo Starr singing it. And then, later on, as a kid, seeing Yellow Submarine and seeing the Blue Meanies. And so the song was pretty much to me like a novelty song. I mean, I'm going with the Rolling Stones. I think that was a breakthrough for what they were doing. They would later on, have longer songs as well, but they were the first ones to do it with this one, Going Home. And so that ends the side for the Stones, but doesn't end the side. Side 1 for the Beatles. They still got She Said. And so we're going to the top of side 2 for the Stones, and that's Flight 505. Now, Flight 505 is said to be about the flight that the Stones took to America. So, and he's kind of longing to wanting to go back to America or go somewhere, but just go on Flight 505. And it has a really cool intro piano by Ian Stewart, who is like the invisible member of the Stones. He's been on all the Stones albums, been on all the Stones tours, of course, up until Tattoo You, till he passed on. But so he's on the album and albums a lot and everything. But his intro here is really cool, and he does a little Can't Get No Satisfaction. Versus She Said. It's a good song. It's been copied a lot and everything. It's just a great pop song, but I'm going with Flight 505 by the Stones on that one. Which brings us to High and Dry by the Rolling Stones versus Good Day Sunshine. This one is, for me, it's just like it's a no-brainer. I'm going with High and Dry by the Stones. The great harmonica solo on there. The Good Day Sunshine is like them, the Beatles bringing in the horn section, and kind of like this kind of happy, jolly kind of music, and it's just those are the Paul songs that I kind of like. I'm not really into that kind of stuff. So High and Dry. Next we got Out of Time and Your Bird Can Sing by the Stones. Out of Time, of course, is kind of like the Stones going back to like R&B kind of stuff. And there's like been 3 versions of the songs that they released. One on the Flower album they have, and Metamorphosis, where it's just the strings and them singing, and that's sort of like, you know, Eleanor Rigby, but their whole album was pretty much like that, most of it. And they got a version of that, of this song, Out of Time, and this version, which is the best version, the longer version. And of course, And Your Bird Can Sing by the Beatles is again, you know, it's a happy, chirpy song, and I thought there was more going on with the Rolling Stones, so I'm going with Out of Time by the Rolling Stones on that one. Next songs we have is It's Not Easy by the Rolling Stones versus For No One. Okay, and for this one I'm going with the Beatles. It's For No One is a really cool song. It has some like French horn in it. You kind of bring, this is the one where they bring in the chamber music and the Baroque pop, and you know, the song is you know, they're getting kind of melancholy-ish, I guess. So I guess it's not that really those kind of happy chirpy tunes, and so I like this one. It was really for a Paul song. It was really cool. I like For No One. Or was that a Paul song? I think that was that was a Paul song, For No One. So there you go. Next one is I Am Waiting, and by the Stones versus Dr. Robert. The Dr. Robert song is, again, it's sort of just like to me, it's like a Yellow Submarine kind of song. It's a very kind of novelty kind of piece, and very, you know, these characters sometimes that they bring in to their, you know, as titles of their songs, you know, Maxwell Silver, you know, Hammer, and all these types of people, they're, you know, they're very, I don't know, they're very cartoonish. They're not very something that I could relate to, and, you know, so Dr. Robert is again like one of those type of songs for me. Whereas I Am Waiting is a really cool song. It's kind of Appalachian. You know, they start bringing in all this stuff, these kind of instruments, and what Brian Jones is doing, exotic instruments, and so because of that, I like the instrumentation that Brian Jones is doing in this album, and so I'm going with that song over Dr. Roberts' I Am Waiting. Next, we got, we're almost done here, we got Take It or Leave It by the Rolling Stones, and I Want to Tell You by the Beatles. The Take It or Leave It is a cool little folk rock song, and but I Want to Tell You is a really cool story behind it. This is a George Harrison song, and he was talking about him being on LSD, and he was finding it hard to communicate what he wanted to tell people, you know, in his state. When you're in these type of psychological, or, you know, these psychotropic drugs or whatever, you know, he was just having a hard time conveying what he really felt, and what he saw, or, you know, in general. And so that's him explaining that he wants to tell you about what he can't tell you when he's under the influence of these things. So it's really kind of a weird kind of story behind it. And I like that, you know, he was very, you know, forefront about that. Like, wow, that's a pretty interesting song. So that's Revolver, Beatles. So we're going up to round 13. Think by the Stones versus Got to Get You in My Life. Now, there you go again, Got to Get You into My Life. But it was like, you know, happy kind of type of songs. It reminds me of like a Brady Bunch song, really. one of the Brady Bunch songs in the old show. Good Sunshine or something like that, or they had a song I remember vaguely, but yeah, it was very reminiscent of that. And so you got Think by the Stones, and there's just this really cool fuzz guitar sound that goes in that song, and so I'm going with the Rolling Stones Think, on that one. And last but not least, we got the album closure. We got Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles and What to Do by the Rolling Stones. Now, for this one, I felt like the Rolling Stones song it just seemed very, it should have been something just like in the middle. It was like really nothing climactic about it. And I kind of, look for things on an album closure, like, wow, just kind of, when the last song is played and then, you're just stuck there with silence. And if it's something really cool, you're just like, wow, that's the way to end an album. And Tomorrow Never Knows is a very kind of obscure kind of album closure. It's just like, wow, just like, because they were going through all these kinds of different things throughout the album. And on the last song, it's just, they're kind of getting into the psychedelic thing. And I felt like this is probably the best as far as that psychedelic thing goes. I mean, this whole song, Tomorrow Never Knows, is way better than the whole Sgt. Pepper album. So, and it was just sort of just like it seemed like it was a cool to be continued type of thing with Tomorrow Never Knows at the end as an album closure. It didn't have a finality of as far as like, wrapping up this whole thing from beginning to end. But I thought, Taxman was, a great opener. And, the Tomorrow Never Knows is a great closing track in its own way. So I'm going with, Tomorrow Never Knows, other than What to Do by the Stones. So between these two, this was probably the really close, ever track by track, front to back, album versus album kind of situation I've been in, that I've been doing, and I liked that this was close because these are two great albums, but the Stones is the one that prevailed on this one, just for I think the mere fact that some of the Paul songs that I felt like those really happy type of bird singing and type of thing, it just didn't really fit in here, even though there was all kinds of different things that they were doing, which was cool. I just felt like some of those songs just seemed like kind of that they didn't really mix well, as far as just like even the track listing. It's just like it's going to some sort of weird, happy cartoon song, and then it wasn't cohesive enough. As much as the Stones were always pretty much consistent as far as like whether they're introducing a new type of thing, whether it was just like Out of Time, or and then having the long blues jam, but because basically that's what they started off as a blues band. So they pretty much keep it rock, and so even like Mother's Little Helper to Stupid Girl, it was a very consistent kind of feeling there, whereas you start from Taxman, a great song, great opener, and you go into Eleanor Rigby. It was just like, it didn't do it for me. So this one is the album, and as far as album covers, I think the Beatles one is like far more superior. There's a lot going on there. I like how they're being drawn, their faces and everything, but then their eyes are all real and stuff. It's just like some cool shit. And then the back, you got the guys over here, the guys over there. So, well, that's the video for today. Front to back, track to track, Rolling Stones versus the Beatles. The Rolling Stones, of course, triumphant on this. Give me a comment. Do you think that Stones or this album doesn't even compare to the Beatles' Revolver? like, comment, share, and, subscribe, to this channel if you want some more of this content. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.